that sort of thing.
Good afternoon. There's everybody. My name is Tricia Denton, and I'm the president of the League of Women Voters, Leelanau County. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. We never ever support or oppose candidates or parties. Membership is open to men and women 16 years of age or older who subscribe to the purposes and policy of the League. 35% of our members are men. More information on the League may be found at leagueofwomenvotersleelanau.org. Our annual dues are $5 for students of any age, $60 a year for non-student individuals, or $90 for household membership. Dues assistance is available. Membership applications can be found online at our website, and I also have a few copies in my bag, so catch me after the program if you're interested in joining, or you have someone you'd like to share one of our membership applications with. When you join the League of Women Voters Leelanau County, you also become a member of the League of Women Voters Michigan, U.S., and Lake Michigan regions, and will receive publications and updates from each of them as well. Just a couple of announcements about our upcoming forums. Our next forum that will be held right here in this room will be a special evening forum. It will be held on October 17th at 7 p.m. It's called U.S. Customs and Border Protection Today. We'll be featuring Alan Burson, a former commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection for the Department of Homeland Security. It's going to provide an inside look at the mission, challenges, and impact of U.S. border policy. Hope you'll join us for that. We also have had a date change of an event that was announced previously to happen on October 1st. That's been rescheduled for October 29th. It's called Won't You Be My Neighbor? We're going to show the Fred Rogers documentary, followed by a panel. And our topic is Building Thriving Communities Through Relationships. It'll be a nice tie-in with the panel that we have here today. And that's being co-sponsored with the Northwest chapter of the Michigan Association of Infant Mental Health, the Bay Theater, the Suttons Bay District Library, Parenting Communities, the Leelanau Children's Center, Leelanau Christian Neighbors, and the Leland Township Library. And then last but not least, our next noon forum will be held on November 7th. It is going to be called Advocating for Early Childhood Services. That'll be here at noon. Following the presentation today, we will take a 5-minute break and then convene for a short but informative League member business meeting. Guests are welcome to attend. Today's forum is titled Understanding and Preventing Substance Abuse in Leelanau County. And I am going to turn it over to Marian Krumkowski, a board member who pulled together the folks who are going to be on our panel today, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about each of them. Thank you, Marian.
Thank you, Tricia, and thank you all for attending today. As Tricia said, I am Marian Krumkowski, and I'm the League of Women Voters of Leelanau County representative with the Leelanau County Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition. And it's been a real pleasure and educational opportunity to be working closely with all 4 of these individuals and other members of the coalition. Our speakers in order, and I'm going to give a little background on who they are. Our speakers in order today will be Lisa Anderson. Lisa is a Traverse City native. She served 8 years in the U.S. Army on active duty as an intelligence analyst. And upon returning home, she worked for over 20 years in welfare reform, youth employment, and training programming. She is now a prevention specialist with Up North Prevention, an initiative of Catholic Human Services, and she covers Grand Traverse, Kalkaska, and Leelanau counties. And she's an active member in coalitions in all 3 of those counties. Chet Janik, who will speak next, has served as our Leelanau County administrator since 2012. Chet began his career as a teacher and counselor at Saginaw, Eastern Michigan, before taking on an administrative position at Northwest Michigan College, where he stayed for 21 years. We're glad to have him here now. Chet has also been a school superintendent for the Buckley Community School System and Charlotte White Public Schools. Next will be John Boonstra, And John is a licensed professional counselor and certified prevention specialist. He has worked in the field as a therapist at youth health centers, community mental health, and on the suicide prevention lifeline. John currently works for the Leelanau County Family Court as a prevention diversion counselor. And last but not least will be Mike Carmine, and he is in his 41st year as educator in various positions in our state. Mike retired from Sandusky Schools to Leelanau County in July of 2017 with his wife Judy, but just a few weeks later he took on the interim superintendent position at Suttons Bay Schools, where he is now in his second year. Mike is the representative for all schools on the coalition and is also the co-chair along with Lori LaCrosse for the prevention work group. Each will speak for approximately 10 minutes-ish, and then there will be times for questions and comments at the conclusion of their remarks. Thank you very much. Is that on?
I think so. Hi, I'm Lisa Anderson with Up North Prevention. That's part of Catholic Human Services. My part of the panel today is called the Science of Addiction. So I'd like to tell you, first of all, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a scientist. So what I'm going to give you is basically, in layman's terms, how to wrap your head around how somebody gets addicted and why we really need to change our opinions that it's not a moral failing. I know that there's not a person in this room that hasn't been touched by some kind of substance use. And notice I say substance use. The word police out there kind of like it better if you say use rather than abuse, because abuse has a negative connotation. People don't abuse drugs, drugs abuse people, is what we hear over and over again. And when I say drugs, you hear about the opioid epidemic over and over and over again, so I'm gonna really target that a little bit. But a drug is a drug is a drug. So in my work with young people and actually people of all ages, you know, we see first of all that addiction tends to run in families. It's been proven. Some of you may know this. So one of the messages that I preach often is know your medical history, know your family's medical history, and don't be afraid to talk about that with your family members, especially the children. So if you know that alcoholism tends to run in your family, start talking about it now, okay? And it's, like I said, it's not just a moral failing. There have been studies, and this is where the science part comes in, that unequivocally show that there is a predisposition, okay, towards certain kinds of addictions, alcohol being one of them. So over and over in the news, you hear about the opioid epidemic. Anybody know the difference between an opiate and an opioid? Really nothing. Opiate is the old-fashioned term as far as how it affects the body chemically. Opiate is the actual natural chemical substance that comes from the poppy plant, and opioid is the manufactured substance that affects the body the same way, but we've gotten so smart, we've created it, and we thought we were making it better. And what we did was we got ourselves into a heck of a mess. So when you hear about the opioid epidemic, it's kind of twofold, okay? There are the legal drugs, your prescription drugs, and then there are the illegal drugs, which is heroin, or fentanyl, or carfentanil. And what happens to take you through the life of somebody who gets addicted, and this is a real huge generalization, but most people don't wake up when they're 11 years old and say, my big goal is to be a drug addict, okay? There are some personality traits that we know are more conducive to becoming addictive, and those are some risk-taking behaviors, a tendency to get bored easily is sort of a predictor. Kids that, you know, when you tell them no, it doesn't, like, I always use my son as an example. My daughter, I could raise my voice and she would, you know, do what I wanted her to do. My son, I had to grab him by the back of the neck, okay? He would not, it was like, I said no, okay? And by the way, I am concerned. My son does have a tendency towards substance use and experimentation. So there are some ways to kind of predict that fairly early. And John, I'm sure, can talk a little bit about that more, but it also has to do with school performance and inclusion and those kinds of things. But typically, a young person their first substance that they start with is what? Anybody have a guess? Most people say alcohol. Close. Tobacco. Yep. And you've probably heard, and I won't get into the whole vaping thing today, but there's a lot of that going on in our Leelanau County schools. That's probably the biggest request I get from school administrators and teachers is, hey, you got anything on vaping? Can you come talk to the kids on vaping? So if you have questions on that, see me afterwards and I'll talk to you about it. So they maybe experiment with tobacco, then they move into alcohol. And that's, try it once or twice. Kids that have a really bad experience and don't have that biological tendency towards becoming addicted quickly will say, nope, that wasn't for me, bad experience, move on. Then there's the ones that chemically, it's in their makeup, it's in their genes, it's in their biology. They go, wow, that was awesome. And so they want to do it again, okay? And then they move on, because if they think that one substance is good, the next one up has to be better, right? And so they may move in from alcohol. In our society, we have a culture of substance use. It's promoted. If you watch TV on any given night, you can't watch any show for maybe longer than about 15 minutes that there is not an advertisement for some kind of pharmaceutical. And we've gotten ourselves, like I said, kind of into this mess, but we live in a culture that there's a fix for it. There's a pill, there's a liquid, there's a something to make whatever it is that you're feeling or going through better or go away. And that's kind of the culture that our children are being raised in. And we're getting away from that, and that's good. Doctors several years ago, a cold is a cold, and we don't always have to treat all the symptoms, for a comfort level. You can let them get through that cold with more natural kinds of things than giving them all the over-the-counter medications. By giving too many over-the-counter medications, what we're doing is setting them up from a fairly young age to believe that anything can be solved with a pill or some kind of medication. So anyway, back to our typical kind of person that gets addicted. When they get to college is a testing ground, and it's funny, I talk to lots of parents who, they sigh that big sigh of relief after graduation day. Got my kid through graduation, all is well. And then the young adult years hit. And I said, oh no, you haven't even, the fun stuff really has not started yet. I mean, it's hard all the way through. But when they get off to college, they're out from under mom and dad's watchful eye and thumb. And that's where a lot of your higher level experimentation really starts, because there's nobody to pull them back. And a lot of times, those that do become addicted to drugs, either on and they may not be in college, but maybe they're part of a college town sort of like environment, maybe that they went off for their first job. In my case, I went to college, then I went to the military. And just because I was in the military, don't think that there isn't a lot of addiction in the military. There is. And so some young people who choose to join the military to pay for college, they're kind of sort of in for some of the same rites of passage. And that's what I mean about that culture. A lot of people say, oh, well, I did it when I turned 21, or I tried this, or I tried that. And that's true. But to put it this way, we don't have to promote that. We can change that cultural viewpoint. I chaperoned for my daughter's senior prom when she was a junior. So the deal was the juniors hosted the prom for the seniors. And this was probably, 12 years ago. And this was pretty common, but we were giving out wine glasses, etched wine glasses to the girls, and beer steins to the boys with the school emblem on it, prom 2010. And as I'm sitting there being a chaperone, I thought, we're doing all this other stuff to make sure they're safe and not drink and drive, and then we're sending them this subliminal message, giving, 17-year-olds wine glasses. What does that say? Oh, you should drink milk out of that, right? Okay. Anyway, you get my point with that. So to go back to how you get addicted, there are those people that say they're at a party. In fact, I just came from a training that scared the heck out of me last week. It was a guy who was a former narcotics cop in California, and he showed a video. Anybody know what couch stuck is? I didn't either, and I thought I knew a lot. So couch stuck is the very, very high potency marijuana substances that are not, grandma's joint. We're talking your shatter, your dabs, which is stuff that kind of looks like amber colored glass. And sometimes there's other forms of it. Your oils. Anyway, it's very, very highly concentrated marijuana, THC. And so these kids do it kind of thinking that it's just marijuana, and it can actually temporarily paralyze you. So here's this kid, and you can hear the party going on in the background, and here's his 7-Eleven Big Gulp sitting there. I mean, just totally like anybody's kid, USA, and all of a sudden the kid just stops. And he's sitting there, and everybody thinks in the party that he's faking it. And they're like, hey, dude, and everything, and they're like, trying to, and he is completely out of it, paralyzed. And it goes on for about 45 seconds to the point where the other kids finally start to wise up and say, he's not faking this, something's wrong. Well, then the kid comes out of it, and he's like, why? And I mean, he freaks. He was like, I was paralyzed, I couldn't talk, I couldn't move, I could hear you all. It was terrible, and he was scared, and everybody kind of still thought that he was making this up and laughing and everything, and the kids started to cry. And that was the end of the clip, okay? So hopefully that kid got the message, because that was scary to him, and you could tell it was really scary to him when he came out of it. Everybody else in the room was kind of like, oh man, that was awesome. You know how young people take sometimes a tragedy and make fun of it when they're scared. And then, unfortunately, some people try to replicate the same thing because it was interesting and it was new. Like I said, I would like to say that the kid that it happened to, that got couch stuck, hopefully got the message. Because not having control over your body, but being able to hear everything around you would scare the crap out of me. But if he didn't, and he got a lot of attention for the situation, then he might have decided to try the next substance, okay? So he might have heard that, oh, oxycodone, and that's a prescription drug, so it's gotta be safe. It can't be laced with anything, so I'm gonna give that a shot next. And then maybe after that, because he got a serious high off of it, he's going to try, I don't know, pick a substance. I've talked to a lot of people in recovery and medical personnel because they have access. There's a high addiction rate for people in medical professions. Addiction, what sets it off? For some people, it's not this childhood progression. For some people, it's chronic stress. There's just that one day where they had enough stuff happen to them that they try something that they ordinarily wouldn't try. Or there's the other route, which is an actual medical situation. You hear a lot of kids having their wisdom teeth out and being prescribed painkillers for that. In fact, I think that was the first time I ever was prescribed a painkiller. The way individuals' brains work, and this is why it is science, but it's not an exact science, because we are all individuals. So we know some, but we don't know all. It depends on a lot of different factors, and we haven't completely figured out, what makes everybody's brain the same or different. But what we do know is, once again, that set of folks, that they get some painkillers, and where some of us say, I don't like painkillers, they make me nauseous, or they make me sleepy, or they make me feel like a zombie. And so you don't do them anymore and you don't finish them. Some people who try them for the first time go, whoa, that was awesome, that was great, I really like that. And so maybe they don't finish all their painkillers. but they get over their sprained ankle or their wisdom teeth or whatever, and then what I'm talking about, that bad day that comes along, and they just need a little something to get them through, or so they think, that one bad day, and they go back to the medicine cabinet, and then they're using a prescription for what it wasn't intended for, okay? A lot of other ways people get addicted, and I always have to throw this out there because it's part of what my agency says I have to tell you. Monitor, secure, dispose is our message. So with those prescription medications, make sure you know what you have. If you're done with them and aren't using them, take them over to Sheriff Borkovich's house right over there to get rid of them. He will take pretty much everything, and they're open 24/7. That's the safe place to get rid of them. Monitor, know how many pills you have, okay? If you may think, well, you know, my grandchild would never take any of my medications. Well, maybe your grandchild wouldn't, but maybe your grandchild comes to visit you and brings a friend, and the friend happens to use the bathroom and open the medicine cabinet and decide to help themselves. We've even heard weird things from drug-seeking individuals who, you know, pretend that their car has, you know, isn't working, and can I use your phone or whatever, and then can I use your bathroom, and kind of quickly search your house. People that are addicted, their brains are not the brains they were born with. After a long time of using substances, it actually changes the structure of your brain. And so when people don't understand why it's so hard to get off of this stuff, this is the last thing I'll say real fast. There's a lot to this stuff, but dopamine is the feel-good chemical in your brain. So if you had the best brownie in your life, or apple pie, or cheesecake, whatever your favorite dessert is, and you go, wow, that's the best thing ever, okay? Let's say you get, you know, and I don't know what the measurement they use for dopamine is, but say that gives you like a 3, okay? If you take heroin, that's about a 3,000 on the dopamine scale in your brain, or what your brain feels like. It's like apparently, wow. And what happens though is if you keep doing those kinds of substances, you damage the ability, the brain's ability to have that natural dopamine release. And so when you're trying to get off of it, besides just the withdrawals, you really have damaged your brain's natural ability to feel pleasure about anything. So constantly you hear the connection between mental health and substance use or abuse, and you know, that's another long discussion of which came first, the chicken or the egg, because did the depression or whatever the situation was cause the drug abuse, or did the drug abuse cause the depression? And it kind of goes around, and does it really matter? It doesn't. So yeah, that's kind of quickly some science of addiction.
Well, thank you, Lisa. Just to follow up what Lisa said before I start about what we do, she was talking about vaping. Anybody know what this is? Looks like a set of keys, right? Are you sure? It could be a vape machine.
That's true.
They look like this.
Yep.
This looks like a cell phone. It could be a vape machine. You have no idea. So it's, when you see people walk around, or kids walk around, it's very difficult to tell because the manufacturers have become very smart. And so everyone thinks vaping looks like a cigarette because that's what you see in the streets. But it could be this, you pop it open as a pipe and you take a hit. You think this is water, right? But how do you know I don't have vodka or gin in it? When I was school superintendent, we had major issues with kids bringing in water bottles full of vodka and gin. So it's a whole different world. It's not marijuana. We used to bring in the sniff dogs to the school, and we'd be proud because there was no hits. Well, if you have pills, you don't hit. If you have vodka or gin in your pop, it doesn't take a hit. And so it's a whole different world. And so it's, I actually had a 4th grader bringing pills to school. I don't think he even knew what he had. It was from his grandmother. But he was socially awkward, I think just looking for attention. So he grabbed a bottle of pills from his grandmother and was going around to his classmates asking if they'd like a pill because he heard about other people doing it. So it's just a whole different world. And that's why I think it's so critical in what the county is doing. And I really want to give a lot of credit to our commissioners. for making this major goal, and two of them are here, Mr. Wessel, Mr. Anzorgi. But when we started this in 2017, we do goals every year for the upcoming year. And most county boards deal with finances and retirement and building projects. And Commissioner Deb Rushton brought up about substance abuse, making that one of our top goals. We pick about 5, 6 a year. And at first, I think she got kind of a strange look from people. Like, okay, we've never done this before. But they went along and picked it as a goal. And people started thinking, why would Deb do this? Well, it turns out her sister passed away from substance abuse. She had some medical conditions, got hooked on prescription drugs. The prescriptions ran out. She needed another source, could not get new prescriptions, and got hooked on street drugs and passed away. And so it's a personal issue, and I think all of you can go back and probably know someone in your family that has gone through it. I don't know if any of you remember Nancy Sundstrom. She used to have a TV show on 29/8 20 years ago. I knew her, very sharp lady. And I opened one day and I found out she passed away. There was an obituary. And she had some back issues. And she got stuck on drugs, and the pain would not go away. She kept taking more pills. And she ended up actually getting caught for some illegal activities. She actually broke into her neighbor's house and took the pills. And her family has shared the story, so I'm not telling anything confidential. But here's a lady, her own TV show in Traverse City, was a leader in the community, was a member of the Chamber of Commerce, very well respected. About 5 years later, she's dead. It was a shock, and she was probably in her late 40s, early 50s, all because she got addicted. Nothing that she ever planned. She just had back issues, got on pills, didn't know it, kept taking more pills. Her addiction got greater and greater and passed away. So that's why I think it's such a big issue for the county. And it's rare for a county to do this, and I got calls from other counties saying, how are you doing this, or why are you doing this? Let me just give you a brief background, and I'll let these three people speak because they really are experts. One of the things I'll start off, we have a brand new Facebook page that just became live this weekend. And actually, Mike and I were on the Ron Jolly show this morning at 7:30 on WTCM. And we're talking about how hip we are because we have a Facebook page. But we were told that Facebook is not hip anymore for young people. But let me just go over that briefly here. So this is our Facebook page. You can see we have a picture of the county here. And it just went live, and Marion actually was the first person that posted outside of me on it. So she posted this on it. And we have some more information here. This is our upcoming events, what Mike will talk about. But all of you are welcome to join us on this page. Simply send a request. If you're on Facebook, go to Leelanau County Substance Abuse Prevention and ask to be a member, and we'll add you. All this information will be on our county webpage also. So in terms of what we're doing here, no, I can't see my notes, but that's okay. That's okay. We can talk about this. So in January of 2017, our county board picked this one of our 5 goals, which sounds great, but then how do we go forward and how do we tackle this big issue? So in summer of 2017, about July 2017, kind of the same time Mike came here, there's a coincidence there, I started calling people, asking them if they'd like to come to a meeting. Lisa was one of the first people I called. Mike got involved right away. I stopped by his office, introduced myself, and I said I got this great opportunity for him. John was involved from almost the beginning. So I invited judicial people, I invited a couple of attorneys, some prosecutors, we had some substance abuse counselors there, and I invited 25 people to come to a meeting in July, middle of July, thinking, well, if I get half of them there, I'll be happy. Every single person came, and everyone shared their stories. The sheriff was there too, and everyone shared their stories, how critical this is. We go, wow, how do we go forward? We did some research, and Monroe County, in the lower part of the state, had a major substance abuse issue. They were ahead of us. They were identified as one of the worst counties in the state, in the country in terms of substance abuse in the whole nation.